Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvette Gales. I'm the Associate Director for Technology and Business Systems. So thank you for joining today to learn about the new features with the ePlan upgrade happening next week. Today we'll go from 1 to 3. We're going to show you the features. We're going to hold off on the questions until the end so that we have adequate time to show you all the information and what's new. Then at the end, we'll open up to questions and you can use the raise hand feature and you'll be unmuted. We may not get to all of the questions depending on what that looks like, at which time we will record this and we will have this on the website for your viewing at any time. And the questions that we do not get to, we'll get those from the chat, and we'll also answer any upgrade questions. So when we list those on the website, you'll have the answers to those as well. So with that being said, I'd like to hand this over to our trusted partner, Evolve, Mara. She's going to give you a wonderful overview of all the new features. So take it away, Mara.
Awesome. Thanks, Yvette. So my name is Mara Fitter. I am the Supervisor of Training at Evolve. I've worked with you all at PGC for quite a long time, and I'm really excited to show you all the new features of the new version of Project Docs that you're going to get to play with starting next week. While there are some things that are very similar from a reviewer standpoint, there are also some things that are very different. One of the things that changes greatly is the way we communicate with our applicants, where we put our comments, where we respond to them, how they respond. And so you'll be seeing that as we go through. I will show you all of those fun things, and I think you'll find the changes will be wonderful once you get used to them. Give it a week, right? So when you log into Project Docs, you will see the logo up in the upper left-hand corner, and you will still see the navigation, the main navigation bar. I will point out that I'm actually logged in today as a system administrator. So you may see some buttons on my screen that you won't see on yours. Whatever permissions and buttons you have today are going to be the same permissions and buttons that you have when we go to 9.2, when you have your upgrade. Okay. The home button right here continues to bring you back to the home page, which is where we are. You'll notice also that as I'm hovering over that, I get a little flyover. It says view all tasks and projects. I like to say when all else fails, hover. So if you're not sure what something is or something does, if you hover over it, generally it will give you a little hint. You should be used to seeing the tabs right here on your homepage, and we still have the standard task list, the task tab, and the projects tab. I'm currently on the projects tab. We can see all of our projects listed here. You'll notice there's this new action column. If we get a chance, we'll come back and talk about this. The rest of the project columns are very similar, if not exactly the same as they have been for you in the current version of Project Docs. One thing I will point out is in Project Docs, the current version that you have a grid where you can filter and search and stuff and such. You have that grid continuing in Project Docs 9.2, and you'll actually see that grid in additional places throughout Project Docs, giving you the opportunity to easier filter and find what you're looking for. Okay. Your project, under the project column, that's still going to be your project name, your permit number, the way you are used to seeing it. Again, this is a test site, and so my training projects are not called exactly the same thing as what you are used to seeing. You still will have the location, the description, the status will show you where in the workflow that is, and the create date will show you the date and time that the project was created. We also have two buttons up at the top, all and recent. If recent is selected, it will show you the projects that you have been inside in the last 30 days. So if I look down at the lower left-hand corner, I have been in 22 projects in the last 30 days. If I click on all, we can see that I am in a total of 123 projects. I've only been in 22 of them in the last 30 days. Anything over 200, it will not list, and you'll need to use the filter. So underneath where it says projects and it says contains, this works the same. Right, so if I want to find every project that has MGF in it, I just go ahead and type that in, and I can see I have 10 projects that have MGF in them somewhere. Okay. To go into a project, we're simply going to click on the name of the project, but we're going to look at our task tab before we do that. So on the task tab, mine's a little messy here. On the task tab, you will see tasks that are available for you. Just like today, you will only see tasks that either you have accepted or that are pending and available for you to accept. You will only see tasks for group or groups that you are a part of. Here, in real life, you would not see the group electrical as well as the applicant, right? You'd never be an electrical reviewer and the applicant at the same time here. We do have a new column, the action column in our task tab. And I just want to point out that when we see that the button says accept, you'll notice that the task is still pending. And when the button says complete, the task has been accepted. And that means you have accepted it. So this button functions very similarly to clicking on the name of the task, and I will show you that once we go into a project. Like I said, the name of the task, if you click on it, it will open up your eForm. If you click on the name of the project, it will go into your project, which is the way I always recommend people go into their project first and then open up their eForm. You may see priority and due date. When a task is overdue, it will turn this pinky red color and it will move to the top of its priority level. So if we look at the bottom of my list here, I have a medium task that is not yet overdue. And then I have a bunch of medium tasks and high tasks that are overdue. Project Docs will still let you do your tasks in any order that you want. This is just how they are going to default show them to you on your task list. You will have the date and the time that the task was created. You'll still have your case type, and the description that is here will be the same description that was on the Projects tab. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to my Projects tab to make it a little easier on me. And we are going to go into this project right here. So before I do that, so our homepage, pretty similar to what you're used to seeing today. Little prettier, little cleaner. It's when we get inside of a project where things start to look a little bit different. So today, when you go into a project, you have a set of buttons that are located underneath the main navigation buttons. You have some project buttons. Those project buttons have all turned into tabs. So we have multiple tabs that we'll be able to see as we go through. This first tab, our task tab, looks just like it looks when you go into a project today. The difference is when you go into a project today, this entire area is kind of moved over about a third of the way or so. And you have your file folder structure on that left-hand side. In the new version of Project Docs, you'll see that tasks and files each have their own space. So this functions the same as it does today. We just have a little bit of a difference here with the files living in their own tab. Right? We will come back. I want to click on this Files tab. So your file folder structure will still be exactly the same as what you're used to seeing today. The file structure has not changed. For purposes of training, I threw all of my training files into the drawings folder underneath architectural. I'll point out here that if a folder is empty, it looks empty. And when a folder has something in it, it will tell you the number of files that are in that folder. All right, so this is our drawings folder in the architectural folder. And the first thing that people say to me when they see the files tab is, where are the thumbnails? I don't have any thumbnails. I can't do my job. I have to have thumbnails. You still have thumbnails, I promise. And I think they're even a little bit easier to use than the thumbnails that you have today. Those thumbnails live right here where it says File Info and History. And if I click on that, it will open up a new window that will give me the thumbnail. It will provide information over on the right-hand side, some of which we never had access to before, some of which we had to pull a report for. And we get the file name up here at the top. If we want or need to open the file in full view, we can either click on the name of the file or on the thumbnail, and it will open it up in full view. You'll also see down at the bottom where it has previous, next, and closed. I'm going to go kind of fast, so I hope nobody gets nauseous from me going fast right after lunch. But I want to show you, as I'm clicking previous and next here, I'm doing that because I wanted you to see just how quickly these thumbnails will load up for you. Really nice use of thumbnails where we can actually see what's going on here and see what's happening. I am in the project that we are in currently. This project is about to start cycle 2. So as a reviewer, I've just received my cycle 2 task. I have not yet accepted it. I want to point out that in order to see different versions of files, just like today, it's in File Info History, but it's that little teeny tiny icon. When we go into File Info History today and we can access our thumbnail, you can also view which version of the file that you would like to view. And this looks exactly the same as it does today. We have our file name, status of new. These have all been uploaded in this cycle. I'm going to point out right here that I have a V2. So that tells me that the applicant has uploaded a new version of the file, which means I can compare what they have done. And we'll come back and look at that. We also have the open markup icon. It looks the same as it does today. The difference is just where it's located in the Files tab. I think it's much more obvious where it is sitting here. Okay. And then you have the name of the person and the date of when that file was uploaded. Okay. We're going to come back and spend plenty of time on the Files tab, don't worry. Just to bop through the rest of these tabs, we have a Status tab. The Status tab updates in real time, and it will give a lot of information to both you as well as the applicant on where we are with the task, who owns the task currently. So as I mentioned, this project is in review and it's at cycle 2. And we can see here that there are 2 groups that have been assigned tasks. That currently Site Road Floodplain has 3 unresolved comments. Site Road has 5 unresolved comments. And current non-completed tasks, there are 2 groups. Their tasks are, not only are they not completed, they are not yet accepted. And I know that they're not yet accepted because when they are accepted, it will have the word accepted right here next to the name of the task. Now, it doesn't tell us who, right? But it does tell us what. If you want to know who has the task or what tasks have been done previously to getting to this point, down at the bottom of the Status tab, you have a link that says workflow routing slip or a button that says view report. Both of these do exactly the same thing, and it's no different than going into where your reports were before and clicking on the workflow routing slip report. It's just an easier way to get to that workflow routing slip report, which will then give you the information as well as I scooch over here, the name of the user. So cycle 1 site road was me. In cycle 1, site road floodplain was done by Tanya. And it looks like these were assigned back for cycle 2. Site road was assigned to me as an individual, and to Tanya as an individual. Neither one of us have accepted or completed our task. Okay, so that is our status tab. Our info tab, the majority of you, come back here, will only see the tab that you see on the screen right now. You won't see these sub tabs. I have those because I'm an administrator. So you have the information here under project info. Just like in today's world, there's a little eye over on the right-hand side, and if you click it, it opens this. Same thing. The reports tab takes the place of the project reports button that was over on the right-hand side. You still will have access to whatever reports you have access to today. The big difference here is if you click on the name of the report or on the icon, they both open up the report. In past versions of Project Docs, if you tried to click on the name of the report, it would not open. I will point out here is our workflow routing slip. You don't have a whole lot of reports, but if you knew that you were looking for a specific report and you did not want to scroll, if I wanted to look for department, any report that has the word department in it, as I start typing that word under the contains, I get that that report will pop up. So when I said earlier that you'll see this grid throughout Project Docs, this is another one of those places where you will see this grid. The Discuss tab takes the place of the discussion board that was up here. And last but not least, we have what is called the Reviews tab, which will open up and show you the review comments grid. The review comments grid is where all of your comments are going to go with the applicant and where all of their responses are going to come back to you. Again, this project, the user, the reviewer, has already completed cycle 1, and we can see that they had made a change mark. And so the comments are here for the change mark. And when it went to the applicant responded where I just highlighted in blue. Ignore that, and I'll show you what that is in a little bit, right? So we can see that we have a couple different types of comments that we can put on our review comments grid. We have add comment, which is an open comment. You're not tied to any wording. It's just going to open a box. Library comments are like if you use checklist items today for reviewers in 9.2, they're called library comments. And then we still have our markups that will come over to the review comments grid as well. And again, we'll spend time here. I just wanted to use this project to walk through so you could see, especially on the Files tab, what some of these things look like as it's filled out. If I come back to Project Docs home here, so I just hit my home tab, I will remind you, when you come Project Docs home, it will remember which tab you left from, as well as any other sub information. So I left from the Projects Recent tab, so it brought me back to Projects Recent. If I would have left from the Task tab, it would have brought me back to the Task tab. I'm going to jump into this project. I think this is the one I wanted. But you might notice here, since this just did this, I entered into a new project and it brought me into the project, into the Files tab. And the reason why it brought me into the Files tab is because that's the last tab that I left from the last project. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Status, just so we are all aware we are on the Status tab. I'm going to come back up to my Project Docs home, and I am looking for a project that has today's date in it. I can either use Contains here, or up at the top, I have a new project search. So I do 2025. I think I need to be a little bit more specific, 0317. Okay, I have a couple of different projects I can choose from. And when I select that project name, it brought me right into the project. And you'll see it brought me into the status tab because that's where I left the last project from. So you no longer have to go back to Project Docs homepage to get into another project. If you know what the project name is or description, you can type it into this project search and it will jump you from one project into another. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at our Tasks tab. So you all know where we are in this project because we are in a different project now. We are at Department Review. I am a third-party fire reviewer, and this is cycle 1. So the applicant already gone through pre-screen, all that fun stuff, and it's gotten to us. You'll notice that we have the accept button and we have the task name just like we did on our homepage. Here, or the homepage, if you click on the task name, it will behave exactly like it does today, which is it changes the task from pending to accepted, and it will open up your e-form, your electronic form that tells you what to do. If you click on the accept button, it will change pending to accepted. It will not open up the e-form. Okay, so if you, for whatever reason, you don't need to see the e-form, rather than clicking on the name of the task and then closing the e-form, you can click on accept. Once you have clicked on accept, we saw on the home page that the button name changes to complete. That does not mean your task is complete. It means it's ready for you to complete. And once this changes to complete, whether you click on the name of the button or the name of the task, they both do exactly the same thing. They're going to open up that e-form for you to continue doing your work. Okay. Now, for many years, I have said, accept the task, do the work, complete the task in that order every single time. Accept the task, do the work, complete the task in that order every single time. And yet there would still be folks that would go in, open up a file, do their work, and then accept and complete their task, and then wonder why their markups did not show up on any kind of report. And it's because you didn't do things in order. I know nobody on this call, it's other people. So now in 9.2, if you have not yet accepted a task, you will not be able to do any work. So you will only have your annotation tools once you have accepted a task. You can still view files if you don't have a task or if you have not accepted a task, but you won't be able to do any work. So I very purposely here am not going to accept my task from here because I want you to see here that it says pending. I'm not paying attention, so I have not yet accepted my task, and I come into my Files tab. And I want to take a look at a file. When I attempt to open that file, if I have not yet accepted a task that I have pending, I get this pop-up box that basically says, what do you want to do? If I hit close, it's just going to close the box. If I click on view only, excuse me, it will open the file in view only mode. If I click on the accept button, it will accept the task and open up the file. And if I click on the name of the task, it will accept the task and open up that e-form for me. So I am going to go in as view only just so that you all can see what this looks like. So when I come in as view only, I can view, right? But I do not have any of my annotations along that left-hand side. Along the top, I simply have my measure and my publish. There's nothing on top of that, which we will see when we do have a task. We're going to have some additional tools along the top. So whether you have a task or not, you can choose to view only. I'm going to go back to my task tab because I do want to show you the eForm. So this time I am going to go ahead and accept the task and open up the eForm. There are some things that are the same and some things that have changed here. So the name of your task will always be up at the top. You'll have some task information as well as a resources tab. You'll have task instructions, which also include a watch video link. If you notice right down here, there's another watch video link. Depending on where you are, what videos you can see here depend on where you are. So the video that you see at Watch Video will not be the same video that you see in the Add, Resolve, Review, Comments area. The Add, Resolve, Review, Comments area becomes very, very important. This is really where we will be able to manage, and one of the places we will be able to access the comments that we make for the applicant. Where we'll come back because I just want to show you the rest of the eForm. The My Review portion, no different than it is today. When you are finished, you can select your review status, and once you do that, the complete button becomes available. What is not on this eForm is a big empty box for you to put a bunch of comments into, because that's not where our comments are going to live anymore. Our comments are going to live in our review comments grid. Okay. So we already saw when I was going through that other project and I clicked on the reviews tab, one of the places we can access the review comments grid, let me pull this down here, is in the project in the reviews tab. And you'll be able to see that whether you have a task or not. When you don't have a task, it will be in view only mode. When you do have a task and it's accepted, there are two other places that you can access that review comments grid. One is right here where it says Add, Resolve, Review, Comments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this project, we haven't made any comments yet because we haven't looked at any files. We haven't done anything. I'll point out that when I open this review comments grid, it does open up in its own window. So you can, if you have multiple monitors or split screen monitor, you can take this review comments grid and move it off to the side rather than having to jump back and forth like I have to do when I'm only sharing one screen. Okay. So by default, up at the top as a reviewer, this will open up to your comments. So your groups, your comments. There are multiple ways to be able to search through comments once there are comments on here, including the cycle, the type, the status. You can even search by keyword. So if you remember that you put in a specific code and you want to find that comment later, you could put that code in the enter keyword and it will find it in all of the comments. And I say in all of the comments because this is where everyone's comments are going to go. By default, you'll only see your own, but you will be able to see the other assigned review groups. I don't have any other assigned, so we can't really see that here. Okay. We will come back and spend a lot of time here. I will mention as we're looking at this review comments grid, there's a button right here that says add comment, and there is a button right here that says add library comment. Actually, since we're right here, let's go ahead and do this. Add comment. When I click on the add comment button, it allows me to add a comment. This comment is not tied to any particular file. It's not tied to any particular place. It is I'm going to call it a word comment, right? So a comment that is an overriding or an umbrella type comment. I was fire, so let me see if I can make up a fire type comment. All rooms require smoke detectors. Right? And down at the bottom, when I'm done, I can click on add, and that comment has now been added to the review comments grid. Now, if I want to come in here and change this comment, add to it, as long as I click in the box. So all I did was I clicked in this box right here, and it will open up that comment box, and I could type whatever else I needed to. If you are in the habit of taking 15 different things and putting them all in one comment, highly recommend that you not do that, and that you make one comment for each comment. And that's because when these come in, they're going to come in and show as unresolved. When they go back to the applicant is going to respond here. And when it comes back to you for cycle 2, you'll be able to determine if that assignment or if that comment has been resolved or unresolved. Well, if you've listed 15 different things in here and they've fixed 10 of them, but they have not fixed 5 of them, it makes it very difficult to know which ones are resolved and which ones are not. Okay. So add comment is just an open comment. Add library comment. I'm not sure if you all use library comments, or today they're called checklist items. These are canned comments that live within your system. I don't think there are any in here. No. So if there were any loaded, we would be able to see and select a category, and they would fill in, and I just pick the one I want and add it. I will also point out that when it comes to comments and library comments, I'm not feeling very creative today. If you want to or need to create an informational only comment, down at the bottom of either of those, there's a box that says informational only. If I select that and click on add, it is going to add that comment as an informational only comment. If we look over on the right-hand column where it says, please enter your responses. This is cycle 1. So you are not responding to anything. You are creating the comments. The applicant, when they get this back, will respond in the please enter your responses, and they will be required to respond to every comment unless it's resolved or an info only. So you'll notice here, I could actually click in the box where it says type your responses here. Where it says no response required, that box is grayed out, and I'm trying to click in it and I cannot, because this is just simply an informational only comment. When you do make a comment here, or if you're going to put something in here later on, we're going to erase this in a second. As long as I click outside of that box, the content that I've placed in the box has been saved. So if I remove everything and I click outside, I have saved this information. So I have a close window link as well as the red X. Either one I can click, and that will close the review comments grid. Okay, so one way we can get to the review comments grid when we have a task is on our eForm. I'm just going to go ahead and close that for right now. The other way we saw is from the reviews tab. And you'll notice on the reviews tab, here's add comment, add library comment. Here are the comments that we added previously. Regardless of which way we get to the review comments grid, our comments are always going to be there. I kind of think of it as there's 3 different doors that walk into the same room, that enter into the same room. But once you walk in, regardless of which door you enter, everyone is in the same room. So regardless of whether you click add comment here or add comment on the review comments grid that is in the standalone, you get the same results. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our Files tab here. So now I have accepted a task, and by accepting a task here, right, I can come in and open any file that I would like to open. I'll go ahead and open this A101 first floor plan. And you will notice that now I am in work mode, or what I'm going to call task mode. And when I opened a file earlier and I said I was in view only mode, all we saw was the file, we saw measure, we saw publish. We did not see our annotation tools. We also did not see this bar along the top that provides us with some additional review tools. All the way over on the right-hand side, this button that says review comments. That is going to open up the review comments grid. So when you have a task, you can access the review comments grid from an open file, from your eForm, or from the reviews tab within the project. And again, if I click to open that, it is no different than if I click to open it from elsewhere. We also have add comment and add library comment along this wrapper area. Again, if I click add comment, I get that same exact window that we saw a minute ago. Even though I am opening up this comment box from outside of a file, the wrapper on the file, this comment still does not tie to this file in any way, shape, or form. The buttons are added there so that you don't have to go back to your review comments grid. So I'm just going to say this is an open comment. Right? And I click on add. Where did it go? Well, it went to my review comments grid, but I don't really care about that right now because I am entering in different comments. If I really want to see where that comment went, when I click on review comments, here is the comment that I added. So whether it's you add them here or here, they are the same. You also have previous and next. So you can go from one file to another without it opening up a new window. So if I click on next, it's going to go to the next file in my file list with, as I said, without opening up a new window. I'm going to go back to that file I was just on. Our annotation tools remain exactly the same, so nothing has changed with your viewer. As a reminder, the type of comments that will move over to your review comments grid are change marks. So the ones right in the middle where that looks kind of like a sticky note with a paper clip, and if you hover over it, it says change mark. And if you use the pop-out arrow, there are additional change mark combo entities. Creating any of these markup types will move that information to the review comments grid. Selecting any of these others will not. So if you have something that you need the applicant to respond to, you must use a change mark. This is no different than it is in 9.1. As I said, your viewer did not change. What's different is where do they see that? And where they see it is going to be in that review comments grid. So I'm going to, just for fun here, I'm going to zoom in and I am going to make a little cloud. So here's a change mark cloud. And so I'm going to call this elevator. And this area needs an elevator. I'm going to hit OK. Now I've not yet saved my work. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to come up and I am going to save my work. Because I have not yet named this markup layer, I'm going to go ahead and name it. Once I have saved my markup layer, if I go to the review comments grid, my markup layer will appear on the review comments grid. When I click on the thumbnail, it will open up to the markup that I just made, pretty much to the zoom level that I created it. Here is the change mark subject. The change mark content is down here. This is the name of my review group. This is my name as the reviewer, the date and time that I created the change mark and saved it. Okay. I will point out that you will see reference numbers. Mine are going in numbers because I'm the only person working on this currently. Reference numbers have no bearing on the importance of the comment. It's literally just the order that people are putting comments on to a sheet. So you may have reference number 1, 3, and 12 and not have the others because other people have added comments. It is simply there to make it easier to have a discussion when you can say, hey, look at reference number 3. And then you could have a discussion about the information that was in reference row 3 versus trying to alert them to and get them to the right spot. Okay. All right. So that is a change mark. Okay. I'm going to make one other. I'm going to make one other. I'm going to come over here. I've got a bit of a door issue. I'm going to use my change mark arrow. Door issue, because that's how creative I am. Move door, please. Feeling polite as well. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to save my work. Right. And again, once I've saved, this is now on my review comments grid. I'm going to go ahead and close this file because I'm finished working on it for now. And because there is now a markup layer on that file, we see the open markup icon. So you will see that whether you have made a markup on the file or someone else has created a markup layer on the file. Okay. I could go in to a different file and I could add additional markups. And new markup layer. So I'm going to save. And I'm going to come back up here and just for fun, I am going to pick a circle and I'm going to circle this information right here. Maybe. There we go. I'm going to save my work. Now I circled this. This will not show up on my review comments grid because I do not have a change mark associated with it. So if I come over to show you the review comments grid, I am going to come up here where it says type, and I'm going to filter just to show markups to make it a little cleaner. So here is my elevator. Here's the move door. Here's the very important stuff for them to do. You notice there is no mark for that circle because it's just a circle and it's just going to sit there. And there's not going to be anything to tell anyone to go look at that circle. Now, if I want to have this circle show up on the review comments grid, I could place a change mark close to it. So maybe I'll do I'm going to save. Now what's going to come over is the change mark. But the change mark, I kind of like to think of it as throwing out light, right? And anything that's in the light of the change mark will be visible in the review comments grid. So now here's the change mark in the circle, but what brought it over was the change mark. A circle by itself will not come over to the review comments grid. It will just sit there on the file. Okay. Let me close this up. So here we have, again, now we have 2 different files with markup layers on them. If I think, oh, you know, I need to go back to A101 first floor plan because I want to continue working on that file. Same as before, just different location. To continue working on a markup layer, you go in through the markup icon and it will give you maybe the option to either view your markup layer or to edit your markup layer. If I click on view and I continue to make markups, when I go to save my markup layer, it will tell me that I have not named it, that I have to have a unique name. If I click on edit and click on view edit, it's going to bring me into this file as if I've never closed it and stopped doing creating change marks on it. Right? So I could come in and I'll just put another change mark right here. And when I hit save, it's just saving it underneath that same markup layer that I named it previously, the MGF markup layer. I can come in and in any order, I can add markups, I can add comments, I can add library comments, and they will be interspersed in the review comments grid. One other thing, let me reopen a file here before we go to the next step here. At the very top, when I do have a task, there's this area that says mark as reviewed. And I always get asked, what does that mean? I'm going to pull this down so you can see. I have the first floor electrical is the name of the file that I have open. So I just wanted you to be able to see this row. When I click mark as reviewed, it tells me that mark as reviewed is successfully updated, and it placed this little icon right here in the files listing. What does that icon mean? It means I put a checkbox next to mark as reviewed. It can mean whatever I want it to mean because I am the only person who is going to see that mark. So maybe I'm in the middle of working on this file and my boss calls and I want to remember where I was working. I could click it as marked as reviewed. And I know when I come back, that's where I was working. It could be as I finish a file, I click marked as reviewed, and then I have each one is actually the ones I'm finished. I may never use it at all. It has zero bearing on your review. It's just a mark for you. And if I select it here and then say, wait, I don't want that on there, if I remove the check mark, the icon goes away. So what does marked as reviewed mean? Whatever you want it to mean. Okay. So once we've accepted our task, right? We did our work. We need to make sure we come back and complete our task. So when I click on the task tab, again, we have the complete button and we have the name of the task. Either one of these, they both do exactly the same thing. And that is they are going to open up the eForm so that I can complete my task. Okay. Here on the eForm where it says add, resolve, review comments, it will show me the number of unresolved comments I have made. It will show the number of info only comments I have made. Now, if there's another reviewer working, the applicant will see the total number when it comes back to them, but I only see my own numbers. I'm just going to pop back into the status tab to show you a little bit of the difference here. So we can see the third-party review comments unresolved. Well, third-party fire has 7 unresolved comments. Third-party department review this task still has, it's accepted, but it has not been completed. They have not put in any kind of comments yet. Okay. When you complete your review, same as previously, you pick your review status. Once you choose a review status, you will see that complete at the bottom is now available. Once you have completed your task is over. It's no longer your turn to do any work. So you cannot add any additional comments into your review comments grid. You would be able to view those comments, but not make any changes. In real life, you would not have seen that applicant task because you wouldn't have been the applicant. Okay. All right, so that was cycle one. It goes back to the applicant. The applicant responds to all of your comments. They upload the new versions of their files. And this now comes back to you for review cycle two. I'm going to go back into that project I was in a little while ago. And here we go. I have the department review cycle two. Ignore the fact that this says site road. Let's just pretend it is the same thing. I just have projects staged at different places. But it would be your fire review cycle two. And again, I can't do any work without accepting a task first. If I click on the accept button, it is going to change pending to accepted and accept to complete, and it did not open up my eForm. If I want to open my eForm and I only want to do it with one click, then click on the name of the task. But if I accidentally clicked on accept and now I want to see the eForm, no problem. I can either click on complete or the name of the task, and it will open up the eForm for me. Okay. Right. Now, this project, there's 5 unresolved comments. There aren't any info only comments. I want to see what the applicant has to say as far as their responses. So if I click on the review comments, it's going to open up the review comments grid. We saw this briefly a few minutes ago, but here are the comments. So we have some markups. We have an open comment, and I can come in here and excuse me, I can see what the applicant responded. So as I mentioned, it is a requirement that the applicant respond to every single comment. I have this first reference 4 that I'm looking at has this file A305. And then I'm going to point out reference 6 and 7. Both have a file named A101 first floor plan. That's 2 markups on the same file. And then I have a file called C004 site, and that has 1 markup. If we look at the difference between the A305 and the A101 first floor plan, you will see that A101 first floor plan has a button that says verify, and these other 2 files do not. So when will the verify button show up? The verify button will show up if the applicant has uploaded a new version of the file. So if this is cycle 2 and the applicant here has said okay, I know that they have not made any changes to the drawing that they uploaded, okay? Because there is not a version file, so it does not say verify. Now, it could say verify here for me because they've uploaded a new version and they've corrected something for somebody else. But as long as there is a new version of the file that has been uploaded, the verify button will appear. I love the verify button. So when I click on verify, it does exactly that. It is going to open up the files in side-by-side compare mode. On the left-hand side is going to be the version with the markup, in this case, version 1. The file on the right-hand side will be your version 2. And we get our compare tools are still going to be the same. And I think this is pretty neat. I could have my review comments grid open and I could read what I wrote, but I also can read here the change mark subject was door issue. I told them to move the door to clear the overhead. They responded, door moved. Now I could read this on my review comments grid, but it's also listed right here. So if I do my overlay differences here, and maybe I want to zoom in just a little, but I can see here that they did in fact, right? If I look at version 1 versus version 2, they did in fact move the door. Cool. I can click on resolved right here, and it is going to change that on the review comments grid. They've done what I've asked. So when I click on resolved, it's going to show me that the response was successfully updated, and then it will go to the next change mark on that same file. So without me having to go back to the review comments grid, it's brought me over to this elevator issue. And I had told them that an elevator was required in this area. They said an elevator was added. I do not see any kind of elevator here. Even if I do my overlay differences, I still don't see an elevator anywhere here. So either they did not do what they said they did, or they failed to upload the new version of the file. So I could go back to my review comments grid, or I could enter my response right here where it says reviewer response. Where did you add the elevator? I don't see it. And I can click on unresolved. And now it actually brought me to the next file that did not have any change mark comparisons. It did not have a new version, right? I only see version 1. Maybe here they said, hey, based on XYZ, I don't really need additional storage and space. Cool, I could hit resolved. If I want to think about it, go back, I can click on next and it will go to the next one. Or in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and hit close. And we're going to take a look at our review comments grid. Here is the door where we told them to move the door. They said the door was moved. We confirmed that that door was moved. It changed to resolved because that's what we selected. Here is the change mark where they said the elevator was added, and on the wrapper around the file with verify, I wrote, where did you add the elevator? I don't see it. Here it is right here in this area, and the comment is still unresolved. If I want to come and edit this, add to it, I can just click in the box. And as long as I click out, it will save that information. Okay. Now, as I look through these, again, verify is for you to verify change marks. Comments, open comments, and library comments are not tied to a specific file. So when you open a file, they're not going to show up. So here I have just an open comment. Proper exit signs must be on every floor. The applicant responded okay. I checked that out. Everything's cool. I can come over to where it says unresolved. If I click on it, I can change that to resolved. And you'll notice when things are resolved, it grays them out. So we are done having a discussion. If for whatever reason you needed to go and they said, okay, or in this case, where I said, where did you add the elevator? When this goes back to the applicant, as we saw a little bit earlier, it will say reviewer response right above where it says responded by. And so any back and forth that you need to have about this comment will live right in this reference row. It will just continue to get bigger and bigger, thicker and thicker as you go back and forth. The other thing that you will see here, so we saw verify will open the version with the markup to the most recent version. We also have the button that says review latest file. So in this case, if I click on the review latest file, the latest version was version 2. So it will open up version 2 for me. Some of these others are still on version 1, so it would open up version 1. Again, I will comment that having, especially, it's easy during training when there's less than 10 comments. When you have multiple comments, makes it really easy to be able to say, hey, I only want to see the things that are currently unresolved, and it will filter out anything that is resolved or is info only. Right? I could also say, I only want to see things from cycle 1, etc. Okay. I like this. If I'm looking for something for that elevator, I just typed ELE, and it will find anything with ELE. So if I actually had some comments in here that had the word electrical, it would also show those. But you can see it looks for that content in the change mark subject, the change mark content, the responses over in the response area as well. So it looks in a lot of different places. Just like it is required for the applicant to respond to every comment that you make in a review cycle, in order for you to select approved here and complete, you must have all of your comments must either be resolved or info only. So if you have any comments that are still unresolved, and you hit complete, which I just did, you're going to get a pop-up that says, to complete this task, all unresolved comments must be resolved. Darn it. Okay, fine. Right? And you can just come up to the review comments. This is where I like to go, hey, show me everything that is unresolved. Oh, I meant to do these. If you do have more than one that you want to change, you can select multiple rows at a time. And up at the top, we're going to pretend that these both were good. I can click resolved and click apply. And whichever rows I had selected, it will change those. I will tell you though, and I'm going to unselect these real quick. Just give you a little heads up. Make sure if you're going to do that, you filter to unresolved. Because if you just click up here at the top, for example, and you pick every single comment. If you have any info only comments in there, they will change to resolved, and you want those to stay as info only. So just a little heads up and be aware. I'm going to jump back into the Files tab just to show you all a couple of neat things. So I'm going to come back into my folder with my drawings. So in the past, right, you could compare two versions of a file. You could compare two files from within the same folder, and you can still do both of those things. To compare two versions of a file, number one, you could do it from the verify button. In that case, it's going to verify the version with the markup layer to the newest version. But from the Files tab, where it says V2, it could say V3, V4, V15, however many versions of a file there are. Today, you have to click 5 different buttons to compare two versions of a file, right? You have to hit File Info History, Compare, pick the 2 versions, even if there are only 2 versions, and then hit Compare. Here now, all I have to do is click on that V2, and it is going to open up that file, the versions of the file in side-by-side compare mode. If I have multiple file versions, so if this was version 4, when I click on V4, it will pop up a little window that has 4 little thumbnails. I can pick any 2 versions that I'd like to compare, select those and hit compare, and it will open those 2 in compare mode. If you would like to compare 2 files within the same folder, same as it is today, you select the 2 files, you have the little icon that looks like 2 pieces of paper with little arrows pointing over them, and if you hover over it says compare 2 checked files. And when you click on it, Project Docs will compare those 2 checked files. Doesn't care which 2 you pick, it's going to open it up in side-by-side compare mode. We also now have something new. If you need to compare files from across folders within the same project, which here there's lots of folders, or from across projects altogether. So I want to compare a file that is in this project to a file that is in a totally different folder in a totally different project. I can do that. So I'm going to click on my compare to checked files icon first. And I get this little drop down that says compare to selected files. So I'm going to click on select first file. By default, this has given me the folder structure for the project that I am in. Now, keep in mind right now, I am logged in as a system admin. You will only see the folders that you have permissions to see. So today, if you only have permissions to see certain folders, those are the only folders that you will see here as well. But functionally, right? So I am in this same project. I can come in here. I'm going to pick a file. I'm going to say select. And then there's the file name. Select second file. Again, by default, it has defaulted to the same project. So if I had some files in a different folder underneath a subfolder, right, underneath a main folder, I could select within the same project in a different folder. Or if I want to compare to a totally different project altogether, up at the top where it says select project, I can start typing in the project name. It will give me the options of the projects I can select from, and it will then let me select from whatever folders I have access to. And when I click on compare, it does not care where those two files came from. It is simply going to open them up in compare mode. I will give you a little heads up, a little bit of a warning, and that is, you'll notice here I use the same files in every project because they are my training files. But we have two files with the same name. There is no way for me to tell by looking at this what project or what folder this file came from. So once you have added a file, it doesn't give you that tree. And if you go, well, I'll just click here and I'll see that it came from that other project. No, you won't. It is going to go back and default to the project you are actually in. So may not be a big deal for you at all. I just like to call that out. And definitely is an enhancement that I have put in. I'd like it for us to be able to see this came from this folder in this project, and that's where you got it from. Okay. So that is comparing any two files from across folders and across projects. Again, I'll just mention you must have at least view permissions in order to be able to do that in a project and in a folder. All right. Not sure if you all used the binder feature before. So binder allows you to open multiple files in one window. You cannot create markups in binder. However, it allows you to open multiple files in a single window. So I'm just going to pick these three, and this first icon says view checked files in binder. And keep in mind, when all else fails, hover if you aren't sure of what something is or something does. And this is going to open those three files all within the same viewer. So I can go between them, I can scroll, I can click. If I zoom in on one, it's going to zoom in on the other. If you notice, I do not have my annotation tools. This is good for viewing, not for reviewing. But again, this opens up in its own window. So maybe you want to compare these three, but you have a singular file open, and that's the one that you're actually making your markups on. Binder, the number of files that you can open in Binder depend on the memory of your browser and the memory of your computer and the size of the files that you are trying to open. Do not try to open 200 files at one time. It will just spin and spin and spin and spin, and it will not open. I usually tell people a handful of files, and your hands and my hands might be different sized. So 10 or less, You know, if they're bigger files, do fewer. If they're smaller files, you may even be able to do more than that, but just be aware that there are limitations of how many files you can open at once in Binder without having to wait forever. And sometimes, like I said, if you try to open 200, it's never going to finish loading those because it has to load every single one. Okay. Again, in order to move forward, you would need to complete your task. And as I mentioned before, you cannot complete your task unless all of your comments have been resolved. So whether they are resolved or info only, then you could move forward. Oh, I thought of something that I said that I would tell you. So I mentioned earlier that this project area up at the top in the main navigation toolbar allows us to go from one project to another. So if I come up here, I'm going to just type in BLD. I have a whole bunch of projects that have BLD in them. Maybe I could be a little bit, I could put in some more words, but I'm not super concerned. I'm going to click on one of the project names and it takes me into that project to the tab that I left the other project on, right? So as I said, if you go project docs home and come into a new project, or if you go from project to project, it will remember what tab you left from. So I'm going to go back to files because reality, you probably work from the files tab the most often. That's one of the reasons why I really like, if you come into a project, into the files tab, you go to open up a file and you have not yet accepted your task, you're going to get that pop-up and you can accept the task right from that area without having to leave the tab and then come back. So again, I can come up here. Which one is that? Then I'll just do BLD and I'm just going to pick this one. And we can see I jumped to a totally different project without having to go project docs home first. So I am going to come project docs home here. The action column that we see here on the left-hand side, what these do is they override whatever last tab you were in. So if you can't remember, or you know you want to go into the status tab and you don't care where you were the last time, you can come in and simply click on the project status icon, and that is going to bring you into that project into the status tab. It will ignore where you left from last time. So you have your task tab, your status tab, reports, info, and file. Now, this is a one-time jump. So I think I left from the files tab naturally before, right? And this time I went into this project in the status tab. I'm going to jump into a different project. You'll notice it takes me back to the files tab because that's the one I left from naturally previously. So you may never use these. You may find them to be very handy. It just takes you directly into the tab that you are looking for here. Yvette, Cynthia, anything else you would like for me to cover?